right. Okay, I see that. All right. Hi, my name is Allison Ho, and I'm going to be talking about strategies for managing web content at scale. So I wanted to do a quick introduction. So my name is Allison Ho. I'm currently a manager of web strategy within the marketing department at Stanford Healthcare. I lead the web team, which encompasses web product management, web content production, scientific copywriting, and UX and UI design. We work with the development partner within Stanford Healthcare. I have a background in art, visual design. I used to teach at the University of Oregon, and I have lots of experience designing, building, and maintaining websites here. So when I first started at Stanford Healthcare about a year ago, I was completely new to the healthcare industry, but I soon realized that web content management problems are kind of the same everywhere here. I was previously at the university in Stanford Web Services, building platforms for the university. And I think the biggest shift that I had was that instead of focusing on building platforms, I now needed to focus on content. Because this is a marketing department and we do communications. So here are a few strategies that I've learned along the way and how I apply them at Stanford Healthcare. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to start with a little bit of context. So Stanford Healthcare is the adult healthcare delivery system of Stanford Medicine. That includes Stanford Healthcare Tri-Valley, and Stanford Medicine Partners. Our mission is healing humanity through science, compassion, one patient at a time. We have over 500 clinic locations, a couple thousand providers, including clinicians, advanced practice providers, and so we have quite a large footprint in the Bay Area. So I wanted to give a little bit more context of the web ecosystem. We have two content management systems. Most of our websites are using AEM, which is Adobe Experience Manager, and our brand portal uses something called Beam, which is a product for brand portals, essentially. We have about 10 websites, and we have about 42 web content authors. So we definitely work on a more centralized model versus a distributed model in which almost all of the content that is on the website goes through our team at one point or the other there. We have about 25,000, 26,000 pages of content that actually need to be manually supported, which is quite a daunting task. And then about another 110,000-ish pages of dynamically generated content. So that's mostly publications. So our physicians are some of them are also faculty members. And so they produce publications, and we link to those publications on their profiles there. And then we have roughly 14 million visitors per year. So that was taken from March 2023 to March 2024. It works out to roughly just over 1 million website visitors every month there. It's some kind of ebbs and flows throughout the year. All right, so how do we manage accurate web content and ensure quality in a sustainable way? This is something that I've been really challenged with in taking on this when I first started at healthcare. So first off, managing web content at scale is a team sport. We have a number of teams that do support our web content. And so this is a list of the teams here. Generally speaking, work comes in through our service line or client engagement managers. And so you can think of them as like our accounts or like sales people. They go out and work with our clients, which tend to be service lines. And service lines are basically like different areas or specialties of practice. So a service line could be cancer, it could be neurology or orthopedics or something like that. And then that's where the work really starts coming in. So they kind of go out, meet with their clients, and understand what the needs are of the organization, bring that back. And sometimes, depending on what that ask might be, we may need marketing strategy. And once it's determined what that is, it then goes through our production teams. So we have project and program management, we have content strategy and UX design, creative if there's needs imagery or illustrations or photography or things like that. We have scientific writing as well. We also do have some general copywriting and marketing copywriting as well. And then we have our web content authoring team, which is essentially web producers or site builders. Is often used for the Drupal term there. And then we have an SEO analytics team there. And then when we need IT, we will pull them in for the content as well. So we also, one of the strategies that I found is that we have to have a really defined scope, because 26,000 pages or 25,000 pages is a daunting task. And as you might consider, like everyone has an opinion on the website. So we really want to make sure that our scope is clear. So when I talk about content, I am specifically talking about web page site building or authoring. That is putting images, video, text on a page. It is not development. Our team, we have no developers on our team. We do work with the development team, and we don't do anything that's super complex. So if you needed to have like a interactive like infographic, like that would not be us. We don't have the capability on our team to do that. The second thing is that we have very specific identified types of web work here. So we've identified 3 types, and I think this could be generally used across most content. So we have what we have called updates, which are generally things that we just need to keep the website up to date. So for example, updating a phone number, or maybe the mask policy has changed in the county. We need to update that for our visitors there. We do about 1,000 of these a year in our team. And this is really what I say, just to keep the business going, so that our content is accurate and up to date. We also have what we call our standard web work, which is which I classify as template-driven pages. And so that means we have an established content strategy. We have layouts that are specific for that. These templates were actually predetermined by the time I got here. So again, we have our service line pages, programs or services, clinic location pages, conditions, treatments, medical tests, and then our physician or clinician provider profiles there. And then our third type of work is our custom work. This is like our like snowflake or unicorn work that we do. These are content-driven pages, which means that they don't have any specific layout that's already predetermined. There's no template per se to follow, but it does mean that it needs to use existing components, because again, we're not going to be making new components in the system. So some examples of that may be like non-clinical services or programs. So we offer a volunteering program at Stanford Healthcare. They have a very specific page that talks about the program, but doesn't necessarily fit like a program page for a cancer program per se. We have operational information too that doesn't necessarily fit. So like paying your bill and other clinic locations that don't necessarily fall into this. We have campaign landing pages because we are a marketing department, so we do run campaigns throughout the year. So an example would be a living donor campaign, which is about transplants. And then we also have special initiatives so that we're staying on top of things. So for example, the COVID-19 Resource Center was a really big one a couple of years ago. It's still something that we have here. And then we also have operational needs. So like Sustainability Program Office is a program within Stanford Healthcare, but not necessarily a patient-facing program there. So for each type of web work, we've identified from all of the teams that I previously mentioned who is involved in each of that type of work. And I would say that this is most of the time. Sometimes it flexes and we need other teams there. But for our updates, generally speaking, it's very straightforward. We have a business need, it comes in, and then our web content authoring team does that. Our web standard work has more people involved, but because there's a template and a content strategy that's already in place, we don't have to go through every single step that we would normally do for a custom work. And then custom is where everyone is involved, because it's probably the most challenging work that we do, because there isn't a predetermined plan in place. So, and then IT is as needed if we need help, like clearing caches or doing redirects or things like that there. All right, so I'm making a gross estimation of all of the web work that we have, but generally speaking, most of our web work is really in the updates. So those content updates, changing phone numbers, standard web work, making new condition pages, making new treatments, and then a smaller portion is the custom web work. So But as I may have suggested or intuited, is that the custom web work takes the most time and resources to do. But all of this is important. So we have to figure out ways to streamline our updates and standard web work so that we can focus our time on the custom web work here. And so that's where I'm going to be spending most of my time here, is talking about how we standardize our standard web work. I would say that our updates is it's honestly kind of boring. It's a service. It's basically like a queue that we have within our project management software. So someone enters in a ticket, the web author takes that ticket and then does the work. I think the more interesting things that we've been doing here is within the standard web work, because we want to make sure that that web work, while it can be complex, we want it to make sure that it is streamlined and repeatable so that our team can focus more on the custom web work there. All right, so one of the things that I've been working on in the past year is creating a knowable and repeatable process or workflow. We have essentially 5 phases of a project, and I will say that this is a very much a waterfall sort of project style, and that's really okay, because we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to make new features. We're really just like, we just need to get this content onto the website here. So we start out with our intake. So with intake, we make sure that we align on what the page is about, what template we're going to use. Sometimes there is some confusion there. So we want to make sure that our project sponsor or our service line or client engagement manager is on board with the template that we're going to choose. And then we'll also conduct an SEO audit in this phase. And then in the next phase, we'll do content development. That's where we have our scientific copywriters come in. They usually produce what is known as like a Word doc or a copy deck. And then that's reviewed by our stakeholders. Because this is scientific, we absolutely need our physicians to review this content, because we want to make sure that content is accurate. So if you're reading a condition page about breast cancer, that content is accurate there. And then after that, once that it's been reviewed, we have our web team look at that copy deck to make sure that it's been filled out correctly, so that whatever content is in there can actually be built into the template, because our content writers are not technical people. We then go into a produce stage. So if the page needs an image, our creative team or someone within the web team will select an asset depending on the level of that page. It goes into web page authoring, in which the web content author will look at that copy deck and then start dragging out the components, putting in and copying and pasting the text in. We then also go through what's known as what we call visual QA, and that's when our web team looks at that page that's been produced prior to it going to a stakeholder or internal revisions, just to make sure that that template has been implemented correctly there. For some pages, we have this thing called mapping. So for example, on a program page, we'll show what the care team might look like there, or a clinic location page. And so this is a highly manual process in which there is an Excel document with a list of physicians, and those physicians then are manually individually mapped to that specific location. And it can be very time intensive, because some of our systems are a little outdated and they take like 3 to 5 days to update. So we have this, we go through QA, QC, and then it goes through approvals. We then deliver, or the web page gets published live. So we actually do all of our page building in our review environment. And then with AEM, you can package up that page and then upload it into a production environment there. And then for every single project, we close it out. We may need to have some analytics in there. We may need to update local listings. We may have a retro, and then we'll close the project. And then I would say this project management support's a little misleading, as in that is happening all throughout this, this process here. So the other thing that we've done is we've made a pretty exhaustive web template library. For this, we're using a program called Zero Height. It's really great actually for design systems too, which eventually that's what we're going to build out here. So we've identified those specific templates, and for each template, we have a template library that has a screenshot of that layout. It specifies what components are in that layout. And then it says in each component, what is the character count and what is the purpose of that component. So this is really built for someone who's not technical, so they can feel comfortable using the templates, and then also browsing through all of the templates that we have in both the desktop and mobile environment. So the next thing we have is a copy deck library. So for every single layout here, there's a link on this page that says click here to download the copy deck template. And so the copy deck template is essentially a Word document that our copywriters, our service line managers, our web page authors, our web team have all reviewed. And this is what I hope to be a simple form that our writers fill out and that our stakeholders can also fill out. I feel like it's like filling out your taxes, essentially. But it's basically a Word document with fields that explains what the component is, what the purpose is, and what that body character and count is. And then it'll give sometimes examples of what those links might be, or it'll also have links of example pages. And so theoretically, a stakeholder doesn't actually ever have to go and look at a page like the layout itself. They could literally just fill out this form here. Other thing too, that's really helpful is that our web content authors can copy and paste content from this document into AEM. And then also there is on the last page of this copy deck, there is space for metadata, SEO words, or synonyms for internal search. So it really becomes like the content single source of truth, if you will, for that page. The last kind of tool that we use is web page proofs. So this is a feature within Adobe Workfront. And what this is that in our review environment, we created that page, but we also need to get comments and feedback. And I think this is one of the challenging things about websites is that you're like, oh, I have this page, but how do I know what that comment is commenting on? Because sometimes you'll get like these like cryptic like comments of like, oh, the header isn't right. And you're like, which header is it? So with this, you can create a proof essentially, and then it'll take screenshots of that web page and you can highlight where there's an issue. So like, for example, in this place, like I looked at this and I thought like, oh, those two sections feel repetitive here. So what if we combined them or removed one here? Yeah. All right. So making standard work really efficient frees up time and resources to address custom web work. So that was really the goal of making these tools and streamlining the process. But the issue is that even though you build these processes and you build these tools, it doesn't mean that people will use them. So here are a few more strategies that we've used to get people to adopt our tools and our processes. So we've done a lot of communication, education, training, and really like change management on this web standard work. As I mentioned before, managing web content at scale is a team sport. So people are involved and a lot of people are involved within this, and you need alignment and build in on your process. And I highly recommend meeting people where they are and using language that they understand here. So I basically went on a roadshow talking to everybody in our department about why this is important, why it's valuable, and how it's going to benefit them in the long run too. And I also wanted to teach them this process because I am only one person. And I think this is really the main point is where you scale, that you have taken that knowledge, you've educated and trained other people on your team so that they can also help you to show people the tools, show them explain the process, and then also be able to explain why it's important, why we're doing this thing. So at Stanford Healthcare, I conducted web template trainings in multiple settings. So some in like big team meetings, some in smaller team meetings, and then also within one-on-ones. And when there are new people that come into our department, I also talk about this process too. So I can set expectations really early on that here are these tools, this is what we do, this is why it's important here. So the next thing is to be patient. I would say that this process took over a year and maybe like a year and a half, essentially since I've been here, to get people to move from an old process to a newer process here. As we know, change is hard. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take months, if not over a year, to do this. I definitely got some pushback initially because before we were offering a really custom approach to standard web work. And I think there is a comfort in that, and that people liked that attention for their specific web page. But it wasn't sustainable for our team too. So be patient while this happens. The next thing also is that to reflect and involve here. One of the things that we were able to do is collect data because we had discrete specific tasks. So I can look in a report and say, oh, for a digital review, it takes us 2 days to do that. Or I can look at stakeholder revisions and be like, oh, that is like 2 weeks. Like, what's going on there? Like, how can I make that specific part more efficient? I'm constantly checking in with people on our team, whether it's one-on-ones or in larger team meetings, to ask them like, what is working, what isn't here. So one of the things that we tried to do was we tried to apply our standard web work project template to custom web work, and turns out that doesn't work. And so we're relooking at our custom web work template to evolve it to meet the needs of our business here. What we're learning is that our stakeholders for custom web pages absolutely need a visual mockup, whether that's in Figma or a PowerPoint deck or something like that, prior to approving the page. And we like to get that done prior to actually moving into web page authoring, because AEM can be challenging when it comes to building pages there. So. All right, so in summary, managing web content at scale is a team sport. There are lots of people involved. It's a lot of coordination from an operational standpoint and also from a strategic standpoint there too, in getting people on board, but also really identifying clear roles and responsibilities and tasks as well, so that people know what they're doing and they can get into a pattern there. You need to define boundaries and embrace those guardrails. So one of the things that I first started was that our team was actually hacking the templates to meet stakeholder needs. And one of the things I told them was like, look, we can't keep hacking these things because it's taking time and it's creating technical debt, especially if we have any updates or anything like that. So I've really helped our team to embrace those guardrails that we have, because the more that we embrace them, the better that we're able to keep this content up to date. Things don't go weird because we've injected HTML somewhere, but our dev team didn't know, and things like that. The other thing is to identify what's important. So for us, that's that custom web work. That's really like campaigns and things like that. And to automate, I'm going to put automate really in like heavy quotes here, the rest, but we're really trying to find repeatable processes that are defined so that people can go through them and they don't have to think as hard to do that. And then lastly, remember that we're humans. Change is hard. Please be patient with new processes. And then I think the last thing I probably forgot to hit on is that nothing is precious here. Like, you can change things at any time that you need. And that's something that like I've been trying to hold to heart, because you pour your work and all that, and then you're like, oh, I don't need it anymore. So there's that. I have any questions, and thank you for coming today.
Hi, Allison. Thank you very much. I had a question. Could you talk a little bit more about who your web authors are and how you decide who they are? I was a little unclear. I think you said there's 40 web authors,
Yep,
what role they play,
sure.
and how you decided that. Thank you.
Yeah, so our team has a mix of web authors. So our main core team is actually a vendor that we use, and there are about five full-time web content authors there. And so they do the majority of the content authoring. And then the rest of the content authors are from other departments within Stanford Healthcare, and they have very limited abilities within AEM. So they really can update images, update text. But one of the ways that we have to keep content accurate and ensure sort of quality across the site is that once they decide they want to publish something, it actually goes through a workflow that goes to one of our web content authors within the marketing department to approve to publish there. So the web content authors are really responsible for a large gamut of things, including new pages, updating text, and they go through an exhaustive training because we have a very, let's just say, unique version of AEM that has grown over 10 years there. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Just one follow-up to that. Are the web authors the only ones that can post anything or do updates?
There are a few people on our internal team that can, but I would say like 90% of content is being published by them. Our internal team can publish, and we generally publish things that are after hours. So, for example, like if uh, like a policy changes, like I'm going to use mask policies because that seems to be topical, but let's say the mask policy changes overnight and we need to make sure that that content is updated. Our web authors are really only available during business hours, but our internal team is available all hours. So therefore, we would then go in and publish those updates.
I had a question. You mentioned AEM. Is that can you explain the or elaborate on that acronym?
Yeah, so AEM is Adobe Experience Manager, and it's a enterprise content management system. What's good about AEM is that it has a lot of other things that it can connect to natively. So like Adobe Analytics, and then there's the consumer data platform, AEP, and then and it's like a really robust system. It's very much like a Drupal or like a WordPress, except for it's paid, and you do need a license for it.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, I also have a question.
Yes. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, good to see you. So this world in which the web authors have to go, or subject matter people have to go through a workflow in order to get text put on a web page, was that always the case, or is that something you've implemented?
As far as I know, it's always been the case, which is very interesting to me because when I came over from the university, it was very much distributed and anyone who had access could put content on a website. But Stanford Healthcare, due to the content and the level of risk that might be there if wrong content is on the website is much higher than I think than the university. So therefore we have to have this like really structured way to get content on to the website there. So we need more oversight essentially than what was needed at the university or other distributed like platforms that I've supported before.
Do you get any pushback or frustration with turnaround times?
We do. We do because it is a slower process to do that. We can turn things within like 1 to 2 business days when needed, but I would say generally speaking, it takes us more to like 3 to 5. And then if it's like a larger initiative, like a new page or something, it could take a couple months, depending on whether or not we can get our stakeholder in the room to review the content. That's usually where we see the most time spent on a project. But the actual page building, like a week to do that within the project.
Yeah, because in a distributed model, I'm sure you've seen this too. Usually the web author is somebody who has 20 other jobs that day and would love to not have that on their plate. So
Yeah, our web authors are full-time web content authoring. Yeah.
thank you.
I can't remember if you talked about this, Allison, but
Yeah.
is there a like audit process of let's say once a year you would like someone to review this page, or once every other year? Do you have something in place like that?
That is an excellent question, and it depends. We don't really have someone for like the entire site because it would take like 20 years to get through all of our pages if we spent 30 minutes on each page. But what we do have is we do have our service line managers who work directly with our stakeholders. So if our stakeholders see something that is inaccurate, or like we're notified when a clinic location closes or a phone number is incorrect, then we would go in and update it. But I would love to get to a model where we can really go through our pages at least once a year, to make sure that they're accurate, they're up to date, and that things are on the up and up there, or if like our brand changes or something like that. But that's something we're working towards.
Thank you.
Checking the chat. I don't see any questions there, but want to throw something else out there to, hey, if you have a question and it's right in the back of your mind and you want to ask it, but you feel like, maybe I shouldn't. This is the voice telling you that you should. So if there is a question that you have, or you thought that the information that you heard was good, or you just want to maybe even provide some of your insight that may be related to the topic, feel free to do so. Time check, we're at 3:34, so we have about 11 more minutes in our scheduled session. So again, opening the door for those of you that have that thought in your mind that you want to say something or ask a question, but just felt like you thought it may not have been the right time. I'm just telling you again that this is the right time.
I'm curious of what content issues that people are facing on their websites.
Me and Deborah are facing similar issues of auditing our pages. That's for one, and then another is user adoption. So it's really interesting to hear how it scales to 25K worth of pages. Our pages are much more, I guess, more rigid as well, but it's not as expansive. But we'll definitely look at your tools. I think you mentioned, what was it, Zero Height and something on Adobe Workflow Front or something like that. What was it?
It's called Adobe Workfront, so it's a project management software, essentially.
Okay.
So I think what's really good about Adobe Workfront is that if you have like waterfall project management style things, it's like really good for that. And then we find that the proofs are really, really helpful for our team, because our team is not overly technical. Most of our people are not in web, they're in creative, or their accounts, or their strategy, or analytics, or things like that. And so we find that with the proofs, everyone's able to look at a visual representation and then make comments on them. It's a little bit easier to navigate than I would say Figma. Figma, we find that people have a hard time really moving the artboard around and getting comments there. And then the other thing that we've tried is Box, but the issue with Box is that you can put a comment in, but it's not next to the thing that you're making a comment. And so you get like a list of comments, but they're like mysterious into what they relate to there. So I think, yeah, if there's like collaborative tools that you can find that have the comment in situ with the page or screenshot of it, then it's really helpful for your team and your stakeholders to like normalize on what's being said.
That's awesome. I'm reading out, I don't think this was said, but this is in the chat. I think health of content is a struggle. We tend to use summertime to review content on the site, which works when our sites are smaller. Good insight.
Definitely agree. Thanks, Viv.
Yeah, I'll throw in from a distributed model, as you were inferring, there's not a lot of consistency across similar. So I work in a school and we have departments, and so each department manages their own web pages, and it makes sense because they're in their department, but our prospective students may be shopping, so it's kind of hard to keep things consistent.
Yeah, and we still struggle with that too, because the website is 10 years old. We've had multiple redesigns, but the redesigns weren't the entire website. So it's like sections of the website have been redesigned, which means that there are different templates for whatever design system is being used there. So we do have what we call like essentially legacy templates too, where we've gone through and been like, here's the page, here's the component. But we may not necessarily have a copy deck for that because we're trying not to produce that page anymore. But every once in a while we run into a section where like, it doesn't make sense to use our entirely new components when this entire section is using our components that were built in the 2010s or the 20 teens, essentially. So there's a little bit of play there.
Something I'm just throwing out there. Maybe you have an answer. Maybe we don't even have time to get into this yet. But I know with the H&S, I'm on the H&S IT team. We have a web platform. We have hundreds of departments, different people using our system, different content editors from the different departments. I think some of the struggles of content at scale is also getting content editors to understand stuff like accessibility. So like, especially in areas where they have freedom. So of course, with any content management systems, there's certain places where there's built-in structure to allow for accessibility. But then when you also allow flexibility, then you open kind of the doors for content editors to inadvertently or because they don't know or that may be something they're not as mindful of, to create a page of content in a text area and have eight headings in different orders. So interested to see if you had ways of offering guidance to that. I think we have some tools built in on our site in Drupal, like editorially, or some sites that will help that end user see visually what the heading structure or some accessibility, but just thoughts of if you had anything around that.
Yeah, so we're actually struggling with digital accessibility too, within our content and within the code as well, too, because our components right now don't really help us. It's really on the content author or editor to make that content accessible there. So what we've done is we really looked at our copy deck templates to make sure that there's notes in there about like, put this CTA like this, make sure you have specific content that's structured like this so that it makes it more accessible. I actually think that Stanford Web Services has a really good model in that they've made it part of their culture for digital accessibility, where each specific role has a level of accessibility that they need to know so that they can advise people on it, or while they're building it, it's something that's at the beginning of the project, versus what we're facing right now is that we have everything out. Now we're trying to remediate accessibility. So if you can start from the beginning, then you'd probably be better set up for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that and agree. Cool. Time check. We're at 4 minutes. So maybe if we have one last golden question that somebody may want to ask to wrap us up. So I want to throw that out there. If you have, I'm going to give about a few seconds to see if anybody jumps at that. And then if not, I want to give the last minutes to Allison if you want to wrap us up or if you have any parting words.
I just want to thank you all for attending and asking some really great questions and having discussion as well. I really appreciate it. please reach out if there are any questions or anything like that. And I'm happy to chat. So thank you.
Sounds good. We appreciate you. Thank you everyone who joined. Enjoy the rest of WebCamp, and have a great rest of your week.
All right, thank you.